I'm Faz. I'm a freelance producer and mixer. I make music with bands for a living. I mostly work with independent bands, new bands, sometimes with management, sometimes on small labels, and further up from there. My main thing is trying to get independent bands off the ground. So Salpa, a band I work with quite regularly. They're like indie pop. They're great, and they're having great success. They're off to South by Southwest next year. Every song we've done for like 2 years has been on Radio 1 now. Another one comes to mind is Low Girl. Similar kind of thing. We do a handful of songs a year. Super cool, like lo-fi pop. Again, good radio coverage. Also going to South by Southwest this year. Both of those, without a doubt, you should look out for. I'm worried if I start saying more names, someone's going to get offended I don't mention them. I've been working music my whole life pretty much. I started off as a live sound engineer. I was working at other studios and kind of running like a parallel career path. So, bit of live on the weekends, studio during the week. It was amazing, but hell, obviously, just working all the time. And a few years ago, I directed my attention to here. Even though I had this place and I was doing the touring at the same time, I wanted to be creating more and I wanted to be touring. When I first got here, I started working hip hop. I'm not really a hip hop guy. So over time, I just directed my attention to what I wanted to be doing, which is more band-related stuff. So, basically bands playing pop songs in their own kind of way. I mean, I'm always juggling multiple projects. So, like peak of summer last year, I was working on 52 songs simultaneously. Most of my work is kind of remote at this point. Just naturally, I see other people for about 10 to 20% of my time, and the rest of the time is me working on post stuff for the most part, or arranging or writing. I do a lot of backing vocal arrangements for people. I keep a very personal relationship with nearly every artist that I work with. For me, this kind of thing doesn't work unless it's like that. Like from a personal perspective, I want to feel like I'm going to work with my mates, not with like some random person I'm performing a service for. But also, I think it's really important for the artists. They've got to feel super comfortable. They've got to create on the spot. As much as it's my job to get it done and to do anything it takes, whether that means like writing or just being an engineer or arranging stuff. I feel like it's my duty to help an artist get their music out and be heard. I can only do so much, but I'm always here for guidance to help them out through the release process and make sure they do the right things, or sometimes just something. It's not uncommon for a band to go through the creative process and get to the end, and they burn themselves out on the creation, and they've got a load of work ahead of them to kind of get it released and get it out there. If you look at a major label artist, for example, they've got a huge team around them making everything happen. Like if I was still trying to make it work as an artist on my own and self-producing, I probably might have just finished the album I started 10 years ago. It's so much work to do that. And it goes up from there. Everyone needs help somewhere. That's why artists have managers. I have a team that works with me. Most of my time with an artist is me and them, but I have people that help me because my workload is really high and I want it to be at a good standard. So I think that's super important, just to make sure, they're getting somewhat of a support network when they go out. Hopefully improves the chance of it being heard, or at least, doesn't feel like such a minefield when they go out on their own. The last thing I ever want is to feel like someone walks out the door and then that's the end, Good luck. What I have here is, I guess, a typical kind of hybrid setup. That term. There's an amount of analog, there's an amount of digital. So the way that works for me at the moment is I've got a load of analog stuff for the front end, the recording path. So what gets recorded feels inspiring and musical early on. And then when it's in the computer, it's pretty much all digital unless I want to do something crazy, like, weird sounds through guitar pedals or analog synthesizers. And I've kind of given in to digital. I'm really happy with it. I obviously like to have analog and waiting because I think that sounds great, but in terms of mixing, it just works. I'm really quick at digital now. I actually love the sound of it. I have no problems with it. I no longer have a console. I'm just on a touch screen. I used to have the console and gear and all that stuff that you're supposed to have. For me, I always felt like I was the only person in the room who actually knew how to use it. And I think for an artist going to the studio, it should be an instrument for them as well as it is for me. So I've tried to open up the space and take out any superfluous gear. I think a mixing console now is kind of unnecessary. I can see some people would need one. I don't need one. I'm more than happy with Pro Tools or whatever DAW, and something like Total Mix, which kind of was a complete like console replacement for me. And Also, as you can see, it's not the biggest room in the world. You know, may as well use it for what's important: instruments, people, you know, music gear, creative gear, rather than you know, faders and things like that, which are only useful for me. The gear is nice and sound quality is nice, but you know, what's the quickest way to make something really cool and really exciting? For me, it's digital. I can just throw really quickly, I can just throw delays and EQs and reverbs and pitch things around. I can do crazy stuff really quickly. I've been using RME bits for years, not renting normally. So if I needed to do like a location recording, I would have got the Fireface 800. I think that's what it was called. I always used to get one of those because they were just super stable, and I'd even just install the software on site. I wouldn't even prep it because I just knew it'd work. I'd just throw it in, and it would work, and it'd have like extra ADAT ports. So I could basically go out with like a full recording studio in a box on site. It was absolutely fantastic. But basically, I was looking for a direct console replacement here, and yeah, I had a couple of guys recommend the MADI effects because it can kind of work as a digital console, which is what I'm used to using, is a digital console I hadn't here before. So yeah, that's led me down the path. It all seemed to make sense. And what really appealed to me is one PCI slot as well for 100 and something thousand channels. It's ridiculous, which yeah, works perfectly for me. Nothing has ever gone wrong with it, and it kind of feels weird to say that because it's a recording studio, everything goes wrong every day. It's the only thing that doesn't, and it really doesn't. It's been absolutely seamless. You know, like I say, I needed something to replace my digital console, which is primarily for monitoring. It's done that more. It's done that perfectly and more. It's just been a seamless replacement, and it's actually, you know, it might seem like a modest setup, but there's a lot of weird routing going on here, and it handles it really well. And it can just be little things like, I mean, firstly, I've got, you know, headphone mixes always set up or always ready to go. I can have custom scenes for headphone mixes. I can load up really quickly. The ARC controller was the thing that really sold it for me. I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to handle talkback and speaker routing. I mean, I was looking at a like an analog monitoring controller originally, which are really expensive, and half the reason they're expensive is because you're trying to make sure the monitor path is clean, whereas with this setup, it's fully clean. It's just speaker. Yeah, speaker from the interface. There's nothing in between it. Cheap as well, like unbelievably cheap. It's been great, absolutely great. I mean, stability is definitely the biggest one for me. If you're in my position, you know, you need to work quickly. Any problems in the day are huge. Every problem takes up minutes, hours. I haven't got time for that. You know, stability is the key one. I mean, quality of sound definitely is up there. It's hard for me to compare that because really mine's just work, you know, my unit is just a digital unit, but there is no issue with sound. I've had, you know, there are different degrees of quality in digital. I've been through them. I think we've, you know, if you're old enough, we've all been through them, and it's definitely up there. It's very customizable with the Total Mix software, and I'm all about that. You know, I don't want to buy into systems where I've got to serve the system. I need it to serve me. That's why I'm investing in it. And for my day-to-day, it's completely transparent. Like, if I don't need to look at Total Mix, it's not there, and that's everything for me. And it's obviously probably not a great sales pitch for RME, but that really is super important in a studio. If a piece of gear works, whether it's analog or digital, it shouldn't be there. My analog gear lives on one setting and I never touch it because I know that setting sounds good. And if it doesn't, I know why it's not good. You know, it's going to be like a millimeter off, or, you know, the preamp needs to go up. It's the same with Total Mix. If I can't hear something, something else is wrong. It's not Total Mix. If I was to go back and do it again, I would want to focus more. For me, when I was coming into this, I wanted to do everything. I was convinced I was an artist who was going to be performing on stage and making my own records, and I was doing live sound, I was a tour manager, I was driving bands. I was also trying to be a producer and do all these different things. I just didn't focus on one thing. And if I'd made a decision early on and realized where my strengths were, I think my career path would have been a lot quicker. Like, I'm not old, but I'm a lot older than I was when I started. And I think I may have got to this point much earlier if I'd just gone, you know what? My strongest suit is finishing other people's songs. And if I'd been realistic with myself early on, I would have got here a lot quicker. All I do is make records for people. There's nothing else in my life. That's what I do every single day of the week. So once I'm done, you know, once I've done today's mix, I'm doing tomorrow's mix, and it's going to keep going as long as I allow it to happen. The worst sign-off ever.